Hey, good morning, and how are you guys doing today? I hope you guys are doing amazing. So it's 5 a.m. We're here on chapter number 25, working to finish up my book, Echoes of the Cosmic Veil. Um, Honestly, we're almost done with it. I'm going to get chat up real quick. I do hope you guys are all kicking butt and doing amazing yourselves. Uh, I did not get as much sleep as I would have loved to, but I am here. I am a
It's the
little
president's day.
discombobulated. We will kill the volume on my phone, obviously. And in 1 second, as soon as it gets past that commercial, I'm sure I'll find out if I actually have a stream up. That'll be a super nice thing. So it does look like we have a stream. That's a good sign. I, of course, am watching on a phone, so like I will attempt to watch chat as much as possible. Think we'll be kicking butt. You guys are awesome, by the way. I want to thank you guys for hanging out always. We are almost to conclude this book. I will start another book. I'll probably take a week before we just get right into doing another, book. We will live brainstorm it, decide what genre and everything. It will be a learning lesson for me before we return to this series and do book two. Outside of that, we'll be playing Call of Dragons later today. That's always fun. So, chapter 25. I was eating some wasabi almonds before I started this. Probably not the best choice, a little bit spicy. From the construct world within the AI, I could monitor the recovery of my body and had access to the AI's to most because we're going to make sure that we understand that we actually don't have access to all of it, and had access to most of the AI's archives. The AI, now seemingly taking an active interest in our survival, had its own recommendations of archives it pushed forward. Archives on judo, grappling, spear fighting, knife fighting, field expedient weaponry, wilderness survival, and escape and evasion. I took time to learn the basics as much as I could of the training archives, but focused on grappling, spear fighting, and wilderness survival. I considered that I would likely have to grapple with one of the guards to get a spear. Then, even if I did escape, I would still have to survive in the wilderness. I knew I had been captured because the AI had acquired additional dialogue it was using to decode and translate their language. Some of the words they used were slightly modified human dialects, but most of it sounded like gibberish at first. For the first couple of days, it seems they were happy watching me slowly die, then decided to move me. Once they realized I would live, they decided to move me once they realized I would live. I considered that I considered that I likely had put. Okay, let's get rid of likely. I considered that I had been put in with other prisoners because the AI informed me it detected a new language, the language of the Vix. The Vix were raiders that prided themselves on combat prowess, living life space on Miyamoto Mushashi. I'm saying this wrong. Miyamoto Musashi, the Book of Five Rings, and Old Earth's Norse culture. The Vixen who survived a nomadic space. Sorry, guys, 5 a.m. and I'm sucking this up so bad. The Vix had survived as nomadic space communities, using powerful runic magic to hide their presence to all others. They had mastered this powerful magic during the time of the Horrors, allowing them to survive. For the most part, they worked as mercenaries, scavenging the ruins of once developed planets or raiding whatever they could from those they perceived as enemies. Though not as technologically advanced as the Elven Empire, corporations, or the Confederacy of Planets, They had better technology than many of the alien races of the galaxy. The Vix had well built raiding ships that were comprised of a mixture of whatever they could make, trade for, or take. The Vix embraced genetic modifications and splicing, with many of them having genetic enhancements. Some of the Vix even having modified forms, changing them to completely new creatures. The most desired forms being those of creatures whose image embodied wars or embodies war. Embodied, whose images, don't worry, we got this, whose images embodied war. My transfer back to full consciousness was slowly, with my body still healing. I chose to lay still and learn what I could at first. Could. Okay. At first, I could hear them talking about how many men they had lost and the wounded. Then their concern turned to one of their people named Shauna, who was separated after being captured with them. As I laid there listening, one of them must have gotten too close to me because I could hear a man with an older, stern voice telling them to stay away from me and that I was cursed. I thought if he only knew. I regained more function and opened my eyes. It was instantly clear the Vix were in bad shape. Many of the men were severely wounded, and their shaman was working to heal who he could. The bodies of four of their comrades, who looked to have succumbed to their wounds, laid against the wall. We were in some kind of stone cell, the light from the torch on the wall outside casting through the metal bars. One of them, unafraid by the warnings of the shaman, approached me, saying, "You seem to be healing quickly from your wounds." Approached me. Okay. Approached me as he noticed me coming too, saying, "You seem to be healing quickly from your wounds." He was a large man and of some importance, as one of the men who was genetically modified to be a minotaur stood at his side ready to guard him from any indications of threats. From We're going to just drop this to any threat. I took stock of my injuries, mostly of the burns. I took stock of my injuries. Most of the burns were gone. Let's go, head healed. The major wounds had. Okay, we're going to change this slightly. Okay, let's see if this makes more sense. I took stock of my injuries. Most of the burns had healed. The major wounds were healing. But now hunger gripped me. The hunger was strong, and I knew it was the disease. It had helped me to heal. Now it needed nutrients. I sat up and nodded yes to the man, before glancing around to get a better understanding of our situation. There were 8 Vix. One was for sure a shaman. 3 were genetically modified to be full minotaurs. The man who seemed to be the warband's leader was a partially modified human, and the other 3 men in his group looked to be fully human. There were also 10 native men who were prisoners in the cell adjacent from us. Do you have any idea of what they plan for us? I asked. The leader of the warband came closer. My name's Magni, and they intend us for sacrifice to their blasphemous gods. The men were all fierce warriors, and I wondered how they possibly could have become captives. I asked, how is it that you were captured? Your people are known for being excellent warriors, and planet is primitive. They could not have taken you from your ship. Sorry, guys. Gotta drink a little bit. Those wasabi almonds, they're still impacting me. The shaman came closer, insulted by my question. We had landed to forage one of the abandoned cities from before the horrors ravaged this world, when our scouts captured a couple of their men. Using a communication rune spell, I questioned them and found out they worshipped strange gods whose idols are made of precious metals and adorned with valuable gems. Looking to find out more, we decided to take the men back to their village. When we arrived and returned the men to them, they invited us in and offered us a feast. So we agreed, hoping to learn more. It was just a trick, though. They had drugged our meals. Even drugged and ambushed, we managed to kill more than a few of them before succumbing under the sheer numbers. We woke up finding ourselves captured. We knew we had lost many of our men in battle, but even worse, those who survived were severely wounded. Slowly, through comments and taunts from the guards, we figured out they intended us for sacrifice. The disease was now making me hunger for flesh with each passing moment. The AI was actively working to help me control my primal impulses caused by the disease. I feared my ability to control myself without access to a lab to create the drugs. I feared my ability to control myself. This should be actually one sentence. I feared my ability to control myself without access to a lab to create the drugs. I only had part of Amelia's control part. Okay, I think we have this fixed, but let me reread it. I feared my ability to control myself. Without access to a lab to create the drugs, I only had part of Amelia's control protocol. The sound of a large group of men could be heard coming down the corridor in our direction, instantly drawing my attention away from my hunger. Magni's voice reverberated with power, even as he spoke softly. Wait until I say to move before we attack. We need to relax their guard and found out where they took Shauna. We waited calmly as around 40 tribesmen armed with spears formed up in front of the cells. First, the guards opened the cells of the native prisoners, and one by one, they escorted them out before binding their hands. Once we got the native, Once they got the native prisoners lined up, they opened our cell, and with total cooperation, repeated the process. With our total cooperation, repeated the process. As the guards lined us up to begin moving down the corridor, I made sure I would be able to break the primitive binding my hand, ropes binding my hands. I'm obviously not all the way awake. It does look like we're good on this. I mean, obviously, when I touch this up on the weekend, there's a chance that something gets added to it or changed a little bit. I'm more or less focused on the chapters that have big fixes that we need to do that we realized during these read throughs. I am happy with this right now. I will have to say that I will be back on in just a little bit with Call of Dragons. We are super close to being done with this. And so, I'm looking forward to next week finishing this up and a little bit of celebrating. You guys are freaking amazing. I hope you guys have an amazing day yourselves. Peace, very best wishes, and of course, I'll catch you guys tomorrow.